this section, we will discuss some of the basic applications of linear equations. The first problem we'll look at will be about cutting a board into pieces. Let's take a look at the problem. The instructions for a woodworking project call for 3 pieces of wood. The longest piece must be twice the length of the middle-sized piece, and the shortest piece must be 10 inches shorter than the middle-sized piece. Maria Gonzalez has a board 70 inches long that she wishes to use. How long must each piece be? Now this problem talks about a board. So the first thing I would probably do is draw some representation of a board. Here's my lovely drawing. The problem talks about 3 pieces of wood for the project, so I'm going to take my chainsaw and cut this board into 3 pieces. In all of these word problems, we need to assign a variable. So we look for the part of the problem that we know nothing about. One part of the problem talks about the longest piece, and one part talks about the shortest piece. But the problem says nothing about the middle piece. So we'll call X the middle-sized piece. We'll then base the longest and shortest on the middle piece. The longest is twice the middle piece, so we would call it 2x. The shortest is 10 shorter than the middle-sized piece. Shorter implies subtraction, so we'll call that piece x minus 10. We want to make sure our drawing is labeled accordingly. The total board is 70 inches long. That means if you put the board back together, adding, it would be 70 inches long. Let's write that as an addition equation. 2x plus x minus 10 equals 70. Now we just work on solving like we've learned previously. We add like terms, so that would give us 4x minus 10 equals 70. We add 10 to each side and divide by 4. That would mean that x would be equal to 20. Now x is 20, that means that 2x is 40, and x minus 10 would have to be 10. Now we know each size of each piece. Our next problem involves angles. We need to know some things about the angles first. We need to know the definition of supplementary and complementary to do these problems. When 2 angles add up to 90 degrees, we call this complementary. If the 2 angles add up to 180 degrees, we call this supplementary. When we look at the angle in this problem, we are talking about complementary angles. That means that one angle is x and 90 minus x is the other angle. If you add the angles and get 90, then let's say one of them is 30 degrees. The other would have to be 60 because 90 minus 30 is equal to 60. X is one angle and the complement is 90 minus x. Now we just substitute the language into the problem. When the problem says the complement is, we use 90 minus x for the complement. Five times its measure, here the its is the original angle, that would be 5x. Now we simply solve like we've learned previously. Add x to both sides and we get 90 equals 6x. Divide by 6 and we get x equals 15. You could substitute the 15 in and check your answer. Just make sure that it makes sense. Adding those 2 angles, we get 90 degrees. The last problem we want to look at is a consecutive integer problem. Remember from class that we have to know the definition of each kind of consecutive integer. If we are talking about consecutive integers, we use x, x plus 1, x plus 2, x plus 3, and so on. If we use consecutive even integers, we will have x, x plus 2, x plus 4, x plus 6, and so on. If we are talking about consecutive odd integers, like in this problem, we will still have x, x plus 2, x plus 4, etc. because odd numbers also have 2 steps between them. Remember the explanation from class. Now we need to see exactly what this problem says. We have 2 consecutive odd integers, so we know we're dealing with x and x plus 2 because those are the first 2 odd integers. Since we're going in order, x would be smaller than x plus 2. The problem says twice the greater, so we use 2 times x plus 2. Is would be equals, so now we have 2 times x plus 2 equals 17 plus x, because we have 17 more than the lesser. Remember that the lesser is x. Now we simply solve like we've always done. Distribute the 2, so we would have 2x plus 4 equals 17 plus x. Subtract the x from both sides, and we would actually have x plus 4 equals 17. Subtract the 4 from both sides, and we'll have x equals 13. Now that's the first integer, but we've been asked for 2. The second one is x plus 2, which would be 13 plus 2, and that's going to give us 15. So our second integer is 15.